Hey everybody, it's the Darkstream, Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic News. Thanks for swinging by. Been a couple days. Been experimenting with Gab TV. It's been going pretty well. Got a new internet connection. I don't know if that'll improve things here at all for Periscope. We haven't really had any trouble with that here, but the higher def version on Gab TV was a problem before, so we boosted it, and it's working well. So, have any of you checked out Infogalactic News yet? News.infogalactic.com. Burn unit, awesome. Like the burn unit. What do you think? How do you like the? How are you liking the? It's a lean, stripped down version of the Drudge Report. Do you find that useful, or would you prefer to have more stories? I'm actually finding that it does have the archive function. I don't know if you're aware, but if you click on the previous AM, you can just keep going back. We can do picks. We've just left them off because, frankly, they're not really relevant for the most part. Yeah, people either seem to love the font or hate it. We're gonna add the feature of being able to change the font to whatever you want. The archive links, we actually discovered that there's some issues with that. So what we need to do is we're going to add a icon so that the story itself will have a link to the actual link, but then there will be an archive link that next to each one, so that you can go to the archive. We will leave it up to you. There's some question as to what is legal and what is not, and so what we'll do is we'll just make it very easy for people to choose which they prefer to click to. I don't think we're not going to add more stories. I can tell you that right now, because we haven't really been able to find. We're updating it twice a day at a minimum, and we have not been able to. On no day has it been necessary for us to switch out all 11 stories. There's a reason why there's so much man bites dog stuff on Drudge, because there's frankly just not that much stuff that is that important. What we're trying to focus on is we want to give people a one-stop shop for what are the main stories of the day, what's really going on today, and then have links to the center right columnists and sites that you don't find on Drudge. And so that's because, the columns on site, that's because your screen is so narrow. I mean, on my 2048 screen or whatever, it's very, very wide. So we'll come up with we'll be doing an app, and then that will function. We'll lay things out specifically for smartphones and for the vertical resolution in the reasonably near future. The goal is to do something that's just super. Everything that we do at Infogalactic is focused on what the user is actually doing. We're focused on usage. We're not focused on trying to tell people how to do things. We're not trying to overwhelm people with things. We're not going to be one of those sites that is constantly updating things for no reason at all. We are going to add, that's a good idea. We are going to add the last update time on the page, so you can see that. We're also going to add RSS feed and so forth. We're going to be adding the Infogalactic links very soon. So that the subject links, and then some of the other stuff coming. Will be, we have no idea what the mobile and desktop usage stuff is. We haven't even hooked Infogalactic News into Google Analytics yet. I mean, that's how fresh this is. We just launched it on Monday. And And rather than, we don't operate like a big corporate site. We basically operate like a very small, very smart startup, which is essentially what we are, with a heavy dose of volunteers. And so, our ethos is just, if it works, throw it in there, get it going, and then we'll add features. I think that we're starting to earn some trust from people that we're going to improve things, and we're going to improve things fairly rapidly. I mean, if you look at where Infogalactic has changed, we announced it in October, and already we've significantly improved the performance. We're about to introduce a new homepage that has news attached to the front page. And I haven't checked for all. We're going to be throwing curveballs at people fast. Want to be able to post an Infogalactic to Gab link goes direct. I don't quite understand that exactly, but we'll leave that for now. Some of the other stuff that we're talking about already is we've already got volunteers who want to start French and German versions of this, and because it's so lean and because it's such an easy thing to use, right now there's only 2 people that are involved in handling all the stories, and I'm one of them. The news editor is the other, and it takes us a very small amount of time to make sure that everything's up, running, and updated. Thank you. Glad to hear it. And we've got 14 people that are going to be taken over. Do you not worry that center-right news will hurt Infogalactic's reputation as an unbiased alternative? No, not in the slightest. Because again, we're not concerned about the narrative. People are going to believe that Infogalactic is an unbiased source where they can see their own perspective when that's what it offers. And so, right now, what we have is not what our vision is. Our vision is the preference filters. Our vision is let people see their own perspective. We will provide that. We can't do it yet because the MediaWiki engine does not permit for it. So we have to completely replace the entire infrastructure of Wikipedia, and then we can do what we want. And that's what we're in the process of doing, step by step, one step at a time. Thanks to the burn unit, we're able to do that. And so, it gives us time. I was talking to Andrew Torba yesterday, and in reference to the question about am I moving entirely over to Gab TV, I don't think that I will ever move entirely over to Gab TV, simply because there are some people on Twitter. There's some people who can't move to Gab for whatever reason. There's some people who are still going to be on Twitter that we want to reach, and so I think that I'll probably continue doing at least once a week on Periscope, just because I don't want to entirely abandon folks. On the other hand, Periscope is owned by the SJW enemy, and so so we do have to reach out to them, but we also have to understand that they can ban me from here tomorrow. My account on Twitter already blocks links to my blog. Twitter already has essentially rendered it. I mean, they've put up obstacles for me accessing my own account. One of the reasons that there's only 180 people on here instead of 2,000 or 3,000 is because there's no way to they don't broadcast when my Periscopes go live. Unless you're following me on Periscope, if you're one of my 28,000 Twitter followers, you have no idea. So and it's what it is. I'm not complaining. I'm not crying. We just do. I could post new account names to my blog and so forth, but then that wouldn't be attached to this, and so it's just going to be an issue. I don't understand 504 and rising. I see 184 here, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. But what was interesting though, here's what I thought was interesting, is that my last Periscope, I had about 930 people, but that was reference Milo. So there's a lot of people that were interested in that one. But prior to that, there were 263. Oh, okay. Well, the number I see is off, so never mind. But the 263 people watched the previous Periscope. Well, the Gab TV that I did last night had over 400. And so, what we're already seeing is that Gab is fully capable, and that's without notification. That's without any fancy notification stuff. That's without the nice comments that we have on screen here. I'm having to like look at the camera and then look at the computer to see the various things. No, I did not do 2 Gab TVs in a row. I just did one the other night. I guess I didn't do one last night. This was 2 nights ago that I did it. Night before last. Sorry. I'm sort of revealing my complete lack of knowledge of what day it is. I never know what day it is. If I'm lucky, I can usually remember the month. So, but what I came here to well, we can cover this a bit more. But I mean, the thing is, Gab is like Infogalactic. It's in process. Right now Gab is difficult because Gab TV is difficult because it's running off of, I think, Flash, and so they're working very hard on getting the HTML5 version out, which will eliminate the use of Flash and will work a lot better on everybody's browsers. Andrew and I were just talking about some of the possibilities of gamification and working on that sort of thing. So Vox Day, just Vox Day on Gab. Easy to find. I have no doubt whatsoever that Gab TV is going to be much better than Periscope, probably within 6 months. And that's one of the reasons why I volunteered to be the original guinea pig for it. And I'm happy to do that and having a good time with it. So, but let's talk about a subject that I've written about. How many of you have read this book? Cuckservative, How Conservatives Betrayed America. And this is a good book. It's not as popular as SJWs Always Lie, which is kind of interesting because it's actually probably in some ways a more important, more significant book. It's not written by me alone. John Red Eagle actually wrote more of it than I did. You can, if you know me well enough, you can probably tell which chapters I wrote by myself and which chapters I worked with him on. But it's a really good book, and I don't say that because I wrote it or because Castelia publishes it. I say that because it explodes various myths that most Americans are still subject to. And it really blows away. How many of you are familiar with terms like the melting pot, proposition nation, nation of immigrants, Judeo-Christian culture, Judeo-Christian traditions? Any of those ring a bell? Well, they're all bullshit. They're all entirely and absolutely false. They're all myths. And we can tell you exactly when they were constructed. They were all constructed in the early to mid 20th century. They are all immigrant propaganda. Now, most of it is Jewish propaganda, and some of it is just general immigrant propaganda. Now, the reason that propaganda exists is because they wanted to stake their claim on being part of the country. And this was something, just so you understand, this is something that the dominant population, the native population, to a large degree supported, because it's called civic nationalism. They wanted these new immigrants to feel every bit as American as people whose ancestors came over on the Mayflower, lived in Jamestown or wherever, all of the, the founding fathers and so forth. And so well, we don't have hardcover. We just have paperback. You can find it anywhere. We have excellent distribution worldwide. You can go into a store in Australia, and they probably don't carry it, or they probably don't have it in stock. Increasingly, bookstores, you understand, increasingly bookstores don't stock anything. But you can go into Barnes and Noble. You can go into anywhere and order Cuckservative, and we have excellent distribution worldwide. You can go into a bookstore in Germany. You can go into a bookstore in Russia and order it, and they'll get it to you. So, but the myth of the proposition nation is something that the current conservatives very much subscribe to, and we explain that. We have a whole chapter here. In fact, if you read this book, if you read Cuckservative, you will understand the American conservative movement better than anyone in the Republican Party that you currently know. At least that's true for most. It won't be true for everybody. And the reason is because John Red Eagle and I actually looked into it. We read, there's the gentleman who is most known for forming the ideas that are the basis of American conservatism is a gentleman by the name of Russell Kirk. He wrote a book called The Conscience of a Conservative. And he had 10 pillars that he said are the 10 pillars of conservative thought. And now what you have to understand is that conservatism, exactly, the conservative mind is his main book. And so he listed the 10 pillars of conservative thought. And we looked at that and we demonstrated that today's conscience of a conservative is that's Goldwater. What am I thinking? Anyhow, but we address this and we cover the entire history of the American conservative movement very quickly, but accurately. And it talks about how Kirk came up with this non-ideology. He even describes conservatism as a non-ideology. It's not even a true political philosophy. It's basically an attitude. It's a pose. It's a posture. And that's why conservatives always lose. Because they have no actual hard principles. As much as they like to talk about principles, they have no principles. The principles that they have are attitudes. Okay? And so that is why is my co-author. We are currently authoring a book that is called Alt-Right Revolution, and so yes, we are in touch. But anyhow, the thing that we are looking at doing, or that we looked at doing in Cuckservative, is that we examined what Kirk said. We examined what these supposed foundational principles of conservatism were, and we found out that they're not actually principles. And so then what happened is that the old right, the paleo right, the John Birch Society and all that sort of thing, were driven out of this conservative movement by William F. Buckley. And William F. Buckley did that because he wanted to support the Jews who were creating this myth of this proposition nation, being more American than the Americans, and so forth and so forth. And it wasn't just Jews; it was basically all of the early 20th century immigrants, so the Irish, the Italians, and so forth. Those that were involved in the Republican Party. Obviously, the Italians and the Jews and the Irish who were Democrats didn't give a damn. So Buckley drove them out. Buckley drove them out of that. And then, over time, the neocons came in. And the neocons came in because of the Cold War. What happened was they found out that once the Russians, or the Soviets, basically threw off the Jewish domination of the Bolsheviks, the Soviets then turned on the Russian Jews and ended up more or less kicking them out of the country. And so there were special laws passed in the USA that basically gave these Russian Jews preference to come and immigrate to the United States. And so what happened was that the neocons left the left. Irving Kristol, Bill Kristol's father, came up with this concept of neoconservatism. And suddenly, all these people who had historically been very Democrat suddenly declared that they were Republicans. And the entire basis for their being Republican and being, quote unquote, a new conservative, that's what neoconservative means, the whole basis was that they were Cold Warriors. They were anti-Soviet Union. And so over time, those neocons, as you know, became very dominant in the conservative movement. That's why if you look at National Review, it's not only littered with neocons, but they drove all the old right out of it, starting fairly early on. John O'Connor, John Donahue, some Irish name, he was driven out by Buckley. Then you had, of course, you saw John Derbyshire get driven out. You saw, am I claiming the neocons were mainly? Yeah, they were. Everybody knows that. The neocons were all centered around a magazine called Commentary. And so it was founded by Irving Kristol. He has the landmark essay on what neoconservatism is. Now understand, not all neocons today are Jewish. Neocon is not a synonym for Jewish, as much as they sometimes like to do that to avoid it. But the roots of neoconservatism are democratic Jews who were anti-Soviet. So, anyhow, Brimlow was purged, Steve Saylor was purged, everybody got purged, Ann Coulter was eventually purged, Mark Steyn was eventually purged. The very best writers that the conservative movement had were all purged by the conservative thought police. They're not SJWs. They have very different objectives and so forth, but they have the same tolerance for freedom of speech, freedom of thought. There are certain things that you're not allowed to think. Now, for example, despite the fact that I was the third most popular writer on World Net Daily, the only two writers that were more popular than me were Pat Buchanan and Ann Coulter. Now, you would have thought that you have this young, smart guy, right wing, pretty good size following, a much better writer, much more intelligent than any of these yahoos that were contributing to the Ben Shapiros and whatnot of the world. You would think that National Review, to which I've been reading for years and actually had a subscription, you would think that they would be interested in getting me on board. But of course they weren't, because they knew that I was a genuine libertarian. I was not sympathetic to their big government conservatism as it had then transformed into. And so what you see is that the movement of, because conservatism has no principles, because it has no ideology. And remember, this is not me saying this. This is Russell Kirk, the guy who founded it. It has always moved. It has always been pushed by the left. And so that's why I thought it was really funny today I thought it was funny the other day when CPAC, after they canned Milo, they released a statement about how they were going to stand up and take down the alt-right. It's a load of crap. They run from us. They're afraid of us. They cannot even dream of meeting the alt-right in a debate. There is not a single person at CPAC who has any ability to survive even a 10-minute debate with me. And they know that. And it's not just me. They could not possibly survive a debate with Stefan Molyneux. They could not possibly survive a debate with even alt-right figures such as Milo Yiannopoulos, such as Mike Cernovich, many, many others. Okay? And so, Steve Bannon would leave Ann Coulter, Pat Buchanan. There's a reason why they have to purge those people. because their ideas do not survive comparison with the ideas of the alt-light or the alt-right. They cannot, you will never, ever, even if this becomes a national bestseller, even if Bannon and Trump come out and say, you must read Cuckservative, and 10 million people read it, you will never hear them talk about it, because it completely destroys everything that they base their proposition nation on, that they base their civic nationalism on, everything, that their entire current program, because it's false. Glenn Beck, yeah. Glenn Beck can't survive a debate with a bag of Cheetos. But, the thing is that, and this is why, think about it, why is CPAC bitching about the alt-right now? Why are they saying that they're going to take down the alt-right? Why are they saying they're going to attack the alt-right? Because the alt-right threatens them. The alt-right threatens them because the alt-right is the genuine alternative to conservatism, to failed conservatism, to a conservatism that has not even conserved men and women's bathrooms. And so, the Cucks will join the SJWs. I even talk about Cucks in a section on moderates. Let me see if I can. A reader of mine wrote this, and it's really funny because he imagined a duel between a moderate, and he was saying conservative, but it's really more fitting of the descriptive of the alt-right. But he basically talks about a duel between an SJW and an alt-rightist, and how and it's being refereed by a moderate who, basically allows the SJW to do anything it wants, shoot early, not wait till the signal and so forth, and then threatens to shoot the alt-right guy because he responds to the cheating of the other side. And so, the Cucks and the conservatives will side with the left. They will violate every principle you think they have. You've seen them do it. You've seen conservatives give up. Conservatives will give up every single principle. They will give up. They will give up. Cuck is not a porn term, you illiterate. That's another thing we describe. Cuckservative has nothing to do whatsoever with porn. Cuckold is a very, very old term that dates back to Shakespeare. And so we also address that in the book. But again, what do you see? You always see these lies. You always see the dishonesty, because that's the only way that they can try to argue. So and this is why it's so easy. I'm not exaggerating when I say that none of them, literally none of them, can survive a debate with me for 10 minutes, because I know what lies they're going to tell. I know what lies they have to tell. And it's very, very easy to demonstrate that they're lying. Like the guy wants to starts talking about a porn term. Well, all you need to do is look up the etymology of the term cuckold, demonstrate its first usage, demonstrate that it's been around since the 1500s, and so forth. And it's obvious. And you're right, cowering from the debate, everyone knows that they do. Everyone knows they do it. It was kind of funny. Ben Shapiro likes to claim that he's this fierce debate tiger or something. So I said, okay, Ben, let's debate. He ran like the little bitch that he is. He runs from Milo, he runs from me, and so forth. Yeah, absolutely. Cuckservatives will be defending trannies. They'll be defending bathrooms and so forth, and they'll be flirting, but they'll be opposing some brand new thing. Whatever the new SJW front is, they'll be trying to defend that. It's not going to be long before conservatives will be defending pedophiles. It's not going to be long before conservatives are defending who knows what. Now they're already defending the invasion of the country. Now they're already defending the decline of Western civilization. If these people cannot even stand on the side of Western civilization, what fucking use are they? They're useless. They're absolutely useless. And that's why when you need to look, yes, okay, this guy's just too stupid for words. I really don't care what the average 100 IQ moron thinks something means. MPAI. Most people are idiots. Okay? It doesn't matter that if people believe that black is white, that if they believe that Bruce Jenner is a woman. Maybe most people believe that too. I don't care. It doesn't make it true. And that's why I'm constantly telling people who are either alt-right or alt-light, speak the truth. Be in harmony with the science, with history, with current events. If those things contradict what you think, then you need to revisit what you think, and maybe you need to modify it. I have. I used to be a free trader. Now I understand that I was wrong. Yeah, I'm not saying that you always need to divulge 100% of the truth at all times, but I'm saying that always speak the truth. And so the Cucks don't do that. The conservatives don't do that. They lie, and they lie incessantly because they have to, because they are defending they are defending a false narrative. They are defending ideas that are simply not true. And so that's why I encourage you guys to read more history. I'm not just here, yes, I want you to read my books. Yes, I want you to read Castelli House books. But more than that, I want you to read history. I want you to understand what the world was, so that you can understand that what the world is today is not just the way that it always was. It's not the way that it was meant to be. It's not the way that it has to be tomorrow. The alt-right, there was a time when the Republican Party was new. There was a time when the Whig Party was the dominant party. Now the Whigs are gone. The Whigs are done. The book club will be coming reasonably soon. There's been some hiccups, but we'll get to that. A great starting point, I would highly recommend, if you just want to just dive into history somewhere, start with Charles Oman's History of Byzantium, or the Byzantine Empire, I think it's called. History of the Byzantine Empire. Charles Oman. You can get it for like 99 cents on Twitter. Milo is not running from Ben Shapiro. And you can also tell Ben I will happily debate him in a video or written debate anytime. I've known him since he was like 10 years old, writing for WorldNet Daily. Anyhow, no, I would not read Gibbon's book on Decline of the Roman Empire. First of all, Gibbon was anti-Christian, and secondly, there are better histories since then. Paul Johnson's not bad. I actually like his Rise and Decline of the Great Powers. But if I was going to start somewhere, because of what's going on right now with the decline of the West, with the decline of the United States, and the invasions that we're seeing, I would highly recommend first start with Cuckservative. Okay? First start with Cuckservative. Okay, that's enough about Shapiro. I don't care. First start with Cuckservative, and then read Charles Oman, The Byzantine Empire. What will strike you is how much the issues that we are addressing today are the issues that the Byzantine Empire was dealing with back in the year 360, back in the year 620. And what's amazing is, like, for example, under the Emperor Valens, I wrote about this on the blog. What do you do when you have 200,000 innocent people on the other side of the river, the other side of the Danube? They're being threatened with horrible servitude and death from the Huns, some of those violent, dangerous people in human history. What do? Right, what you should do is you sink the boats and you make sure that they're all dead. You do not let them come in. Well, how terrible is that? How awful is that? What about these poor, what about the women? What about the children? Maybe we can let them in, but we'll just make sure they're disarmed. That would be the smart thing to do, right? Well, the Emperor Valens did that. He made sure that all the men were disarmed. Within 1 year, they had wiped out a large part of that province. Within 6 years, the emperor himself was dead on the battlefield, wiped out by those people. About 34 years later, after laying waste to a good part of the Eastern Empire, the Visigoths moved west and sacked Rome in 404. I think they came over in 360. They crossed the Danube. They were permitted to cross the Danube in 360 and permitted past the borders. And then within 34 years, they'd actually wiped out Rome. Okay? That is what happens when you don't sink the ships. That's what happens when you don't protect the borders. You know, the USA, and it's not the historical Americans that destroyed the United States. It's the people who passed the 1965 Immigration Act, which was pushed primarily by immigrant Irish, immigrant Jews. And so, yeah, you do the math. 1965 to 2017 takes about the same takes about the same period of time. History repeats itself. History rhymes. You need to learn from history. If you don't learn from history, you don't know when the self-destructive elites are lying to you. You don't know what the truth is. And so that's why I said, that's, for those of you who are interested, that's my assignment. Go get Cuckservative, read Cuckservative. Go get Oman, read Oman. People do though, but here's the encouraging thing, is that even though the empire was absolutely, think about it, the Byzantine Empire did not fall in 400. Stuck around for about another, nearly 1,000 years. Because men rose up who were wise, who were courageous, and who were willing to do the hard things that were necessary to drive back, to drive out the outsiders, to drive back the foreign, the enemies that were encroaching on their borders, and so, history, yes, it does. It's a history of the entire Byzantine Empire. It's not very long. It's about 300 pages. It starts with Constantine founding Constantinople, and it ends with the fall of Constantinople to the Muslims. And so, the important thing is, that's the other thing that's great about history, is it helps you put things into perspective. Everybody always thinks either that the world's always going to get better or that the world's going to hell. Neither is true. Everything goes in cycles. We're at the peak of one of the greatest economic and peace booms in history. We're now past the peak. This is what's coming. But that doesn't mean that the world is going to end. It just means that things are going to change. And so the more we learn, and we are fortunate. We have men like the God Emperor who's been elected. We have men like Darth Bannon who's risen. We've got good people, strong people that are rising. I don't know how many of them are going to prove to be great, but some of them will. And you can feel the change in the air, and we are part of that. The alt-right is the change in the West. And if the West is going to survive, and we don't know that it will, we don't know that it won't. But what we know is that if the West is going to survive, it's going to need the alt-right. It's going to need you. It's going to need these new platforms. It's going to need Gab. It's going to need Infogalactic. It's going to need Brave. It's going to need that and 10,000 things more. Yeah, that's right. The alt-right is the ideological vanguard of the West. That's a great phrase. I'm going to totally use that. And so, I encourage you guys to get involved in whatever small way you can. We've now got, my goal for the year for the Infogalactic Burn Unit was 1,000 subscribers. We're nearly at 300 already. It's not even the end of February. Okay? The CPAC is attacking the alt-right because they're scared of it and because they know it is dangerous to their fake non-ideology. And the alt-right is not me. The alt-right is not Richard Spencer. It's not Milo. It is an idea. And that's what's so important about it, is that you can't kill an idea. If I disappear tomorrow, nothing will change. They did their best to take Milo out in a coordinated media hit. It's not going to change anything. Milo's going to come back stronger than before. And even if Milo didn't, someone would come to the fore to replace him, because that's how it works with ideas. Read, there's a great, this has gone much longer than I expected, so I'm sorry about that. But there's a great section in War and Peace where Tolstoy is describing, I think it's the Battle of Borodino. And what he proves is that neither the Russian general, whose name escapes me at the moment, nor Napoleon had any control whatsoever of the events that took place there. He examines the decisions that they supposedly made. And he demonstrates that at no point did they have the necessary information or the necessary knowledge or the ability to communicate to affect any of the major decisions that they supposedly made that were supposedly crucial. What does that mean? It means that history has momentum of its own. And so we are part of this great wave of social mood, of all the various little elements that go into making up history. I do not believe that Islam will prevail. I believe that Islam, like so many things, contains the seeds of its own destruction. And you got to remember, as bad as things look, imagine how it looked to the Spaniards when they were actually conquered by the Muslims. And yet, one little battle, led by the king of Asturias, which was at the time just a small little, I don't think he was even king at that point, completely turned things around. And it took them 700 years, and yet they drove out the Moor. And so, there's no reason to give up hope. There's no reason to despair. There is a reason to start caring. There is a reason to at least put in your 2 cents. There is a reason to think. By all means, think. If you suspect someone's lying to you, look into it. When you hear those things that don't sound quite right, look into it. And when you discover that they're lying to you, stop believing them. No, of course you don't have 700 years. I don't have 700 years. None of us do. But what do great men do? Great men plant the trees in whose shade they will never sit. That's ridiculous. Christianity absolutely has a future. You think that we don't have a future because a few more people are becoming atheists? How many did we need to take over the world? How many people did Jesus need to spread the gospel all over the world? Anyone? Depends. Judas was not one of them, but if you count Paul, I would say 11. But 12 is a reasonable answer. You think that Christianity, which still has a billion, is going to go away when it needed 11 at the beginning. Christianity isn't going to go away because it's not about men. It's not about history. That's a totally different subject. So, yes, I do believe in an afterlife. I'm a Christian. So, anyhow, but we're starting to get off track now. So remember, I've heard somebody reported that Oman's Byzantine Empire is free on Kindle right now. So go for it, pick it up. Cuckservative, you can pick it up either in paperback, audiobook, or ebook. Have at it, and follow. Keep in mind, the more that they attack the alt-right, the more that we know we're over the target. So have a good evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon on either Gab TV or Infogalactic News. Take it easy.